Good evening, everyone, and welcome to BT's Fly Tying Friday. Tonight, the 22nd of March, 2024, our friend Gary Begley is going to either skunk us or scud us. We're not sure which, or both. And on the weekly tip, we're going to talk about giving flies the eye, if you will. But for now, I'm LBD from Boise, Idaho. My lovely wife is still recovering and will not be joining us this evening. Let me bring my good friend Gary Begley in here and tell you all about him. He's tonight's presenter. Gary is the fly tying director for the Ohio Council of Fly Fishers International. He has helped with the tying classes for the Buckeye United Fly Fishers for several years. He has run a monthly tying demo for the last 15 years, and the last 3 of those were online via Zoom. This year, he was the headlining tyer for the Greater Cincinnati Fly Fishing Show and a featured tyer at the North Coast Fly Fishing Expo near Cleveland, Ohio. For now, Gary, the stage is all yours. I've got your recipes ready whenever you want them.
Okay, thank you, Al. Well, like Al indicated, we're going to tie a scud and a skunk. I'll start with the scud. I'll show you the fly. That's what I'm going for. Fairly common scud pattern with the exception of the hook. It's Arex FW527. I'll show you that hook first off without any weight on it. That, in my opinion, is the unique part of this fly. All right, so I can go ahead and show. We can talk about the materials right here on the hook. Tail, I'm going to use some barbs from a particular partridge feather, which I'll show you how I get to that on the Hungarian partridge skin. There's a rib of clear monofilament in there. The scud back is that indeed scud back. The dubbing is sow scud. It's a mixture of Antron and Australian possum, and it works really well. You can see it really bugs up real well. And the antenna are some Coq de Leon barbs. That's the hook. Very short shank, extremely large gape or gap, whichever you prefer to call it. And it really works well to come up with the scud shape. So I've got one with the weight already in. Wait all evening. But I've got some 15 thousandths diameter lead wire, and it goes from here to here. Then, in order to help get the add a little bit more weight and get some start to achieve the hump shape of the scud, there's another layer of the same lead from here to here. All right, that said, I'm going to get started. I'm going to use some tan 8/0 uni thread. I'll be bouncing this around, hook shank around different positions as I tie. I want to get a little bit of a thread dam built on both sides of the lead. Leave that tag there so it led to my my thread doesn't go down in between the wire wraps. And like I said, get a little bit of a thread dam built back here. A thread base from a tail. And we'll go off the camera 3. Show you where I get the tail. I like, of course, these down here around the neck area I like to use for soft tackle. There's a lot of really nice feathers on here that don't normally get used. I'm going to utilize one of these for a for some of the tail barbs. I've already selected one right there by rear, close to the wing. I like the brown bar across there. We'll head back to the vise. Strip some of this off camera. Just going to get a few of these along the rachis. Pull that down. always leave the tail a little bit longer than I think it should be, because once I get the rest of the materials tied on, they seem to disappear on me. All right, from that point, I'll put the rib in on the way back down. I like to tie these in underneath the hook. Back forward just a little bit, put my Scud back in. Now, for some reason, I don't understand why, but I try to do a pinch wrap with this stuff, and it ends up sliding on to the side of the hook, or slightly to the side. So what I've found I can do, just push it straight down with my thumb on top of the center of the hook. Spin my thread counterclockwise, that way it comes up and goes right against my thumb, runs right off my thumbnail normally, and generally stays right on top. Down to the tie-in point. Now we need some dubbing. And sow bug dubbing. And I generally, with this pattern, put a lot more dubbing than I normally would on a pattern. I have plenty to get it bugged up, so to speak.
Now, is that sow scud dubbing that you're putting on there? We've got a question from Rick. Wants to know, is it sold on the marketplace or is that something you made up?
No, it's let me get the package here. I think it's a Waspy product. There we go.
Oh,
Sow
Jay
Scud
Stockard. Okay.
Waspy. There's several different colors. This designed specifically, as it says, for sow bugs and scuds, and it works real well. It's real easy to work with too. I'm gonna build some taper on the thread as I get to the center of the fly. Again, I want to maintain that shape. Scuds are humped up, so to speak. Some of my dry fly students would absolutely be ashamed of me having dubbing this thick. I'll start thinning it down as we get toward the front. And next, this is the point where I need to put in my antenna. I'm reasonably sure this fly wouldn't fish much different without the tail and without the antenna, but I thought I'd dress it up for the occasion. Just going to get a few of these Coq de Leon fibers, barbs, I should say. A little longer than I want. Okay. Time for the Scud back. This loop seems to work well for me on this end of the Scud back. Fold this back over. I went 3 turns. I'm going to fold it back over, get it through change to the rear. Help lock it in better. And actually, just for extra security, do a whip finish right here. Now I'll cut that off there. All right, now we need to wrap the rib. And there's no point in counter wrapping it, so I'm going to wrap it standard direction from there. Pull it up, just kind of easy wrap over top of it. So trying to avoid thread torque and scooting the Scud back around. And I don't like to use my good scissors when I cut this monofilament. There we go. Whip finish. I like to do a half hitch first, the way I use my finger to do the whip finish. If I don't do a half hitch first, it kind of slides around. Make sure I get the proper one turn in front of the other, or the
I want everybody to take note that Gary did that whip finish with his bodkin in his hand to finish it. That it still blows my mind. Got a question from Little John, wants to know if Pardo Coq de Leon would work as well for the antenna. I don't know about you, but it would seem like it would.
I would imagine. Oh, yeah. Just something to suggest an antenna. And again, like I said, I question whether it is going to fish much different with or without it.
Okay, where and when do you fish what colors? I've got a question on that.
Around here, I'm a little bit north of Cincinnati, Ohio. This is my favorite color. And pretty much year round you can have some good luck. There's, let's see, what are all the common colors are olive, tan, darker brown. What I understand, the orange ones are the dead ones.
And one last question from Aaron, is your rib mono or fluorocarbon?
Mono. I've got a spool of this stuff that I've been using for years and years. I've still got probably got more
looks like monofilament to me. You did the same thing I did. You buy one heck of a big spool and you've used it for the last umpteen years, huh?
Yep, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
for
is
sure.
For this size 12. It's 8 thousandths diameter. Works well.
Got it. So you just let me know. You answer questions, and I'm ready to pop up the next recipe whenever you're ready.
Let's see. Looks like there's a question there. Why mono and not extra small wire? From time to time, a pattern of this sort, I will use wire just to achieve the look. There was a pattern. What was it? A little small caddis pattern, and I was trying to use clear mono, and it really couldn't see really couldn't see the body sections, the rib, and I switched to real extra small size dark wire, and it worked real well. So just depends on the situation as far as I'm concerned. This pattern, I got it as close as I can to the best of my ability as far as researching to the original, close as I could to the original one. It's apparently from the 1940s, and it's a Michigan-based fly. Michigan, northern part of lower Michigan, I would think would be the case. Apparently, it's according to the information I found online, this was supposedly the very first pattern that used rubber legs. But it's been tweaked over the years. Let me show you the pattern. All right. So as far as the materials, we're going to use skunk tail, um, squirrel tail for the tail on the fly. It's the body is chenille, and we've got a wing, of course, deer hair, obviously, and a little bit of a head and rubber leg material. It's been tweaked a little more over the years, and it's just all white calf tail as opposed to the squirrel tail. And they have substituted poly yarn for the chenille. I would think in an effort to try to get it to float better. And there's a guide service up in northern Michigan that has come up with even a better yet one. They refer to it as a Michigan skunk improved. I tied one of those. I'll show you when we get finished with this. Please remind me if it slips my mind. Pattern calls for 1X long dry fly. I'm doing it on size 2, or excuse me, it's a size 8, but a 2X long. And in order to get a 2X long in my supply, I had to have a one with a slightly curved hook, and it seems like it's going to work real well. Okay, I'm going to use 140 denier ultra thread. Now I got a little bit of an issue here with this fly because the hook shank, we all know, is very slippery. This thread is slippery, I'll give you that. And squirrel tail is definitely slippery. One of the slipperiest materials I've tried to get tied onto a hook. So I'm going to alter my thread base. Start it back here. Right about at the hook point, between the hook point and the barb. And what I'm going to do, spin my thread. I'm going to use what I call a spun thread, crisscross thread base. It's going to, the idea of it is I'm going to get some texture on here as opposed to just a smooth thread base of thread. All right, so my thread is twisted up, corded up, whatever term you want to use. Open turns, as you see. Now, if you notice, these wraps of thread are going somewhat at an angle, pointing this way. When I come back, they're going to go the opposite direction. And the first layer is going to be bound down by the second layer. And I've got some texture there now. I've got some little hills and valleys. I can run my bodkin across it. I can feel it going bump, 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 bump. I got some texture there to try to successfully bind down this super slippery squirrel tail. Squirrel tail. Not going to get very much at all. I twist it maybe same diameter as the lead inside of a lead pencil. Yeah, see, I got some little trash receptacle over here to get rid of some of the junk out of here. Not much. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and stack this. I've had people tell me that you can't stack squirrel tail. I just smile and keep on stacking because, yes, you can stack it. Done it many, many times. Okay, back to the vise. Got the tail prepared. Probably didn't get good enough, tight enough wraps. Now I'm going to pull this up. Zip my thread forward. Now I can bind this down. Now I can just go back over it without it being an issue trying to hold it down on top of the hook shank. I want to come back with very tight turns. I'm actually flirting with the breaking strength of this thread. Trying to get it down into that texture that I created. All right. Need to get back to the rear. We need to tie in our chenille for the body. Yeah. I want to get my thread to about the 1/3 point of the hook shank. And instead of just zipping it over there, I'm going to do half hitch and a whip right here, and then I'll start it back in the middle of the, not in the middle, but in the chenille, back about the 1/3 point of the hook. Got some hair here. I'm not going to get very much. Of course, I'll lose some. Bring this out, get rid of the junk out of it. I want the wing. Wait, let me stack this real quick. I was forgetting something. I'm going to stack this. This reminds me, most of us stack vertically, and I've started stacking it at a 45-degree angle. And I'll tell you why. I took a class many years ago taught by Wayne Llewellyn, and that little tip he gave us, if you stack it with the stacker completely vertical, when you turn it over 90 degrees, do all the hairs actually fall down exactly where we want them to. If I want to cut this at the hook eye, but let me show you something. If I'll cut it back here, and if I try to cut it 90 degrees, a lot of times those hairs will jump out of the way and you can't get them all toward the end. So if you angle it just slightly inward, you get them all. It's a nice straight cut. So I am going to spin my thread back up so it'll be stronger. It's a little bit more, a little bit tighter each turn. And I'm sure the rear is flared up more than I want to, the wing portion. So I'm going to take a few soft wraps back here, kind of tame that a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Now, let's think about this. Wraps around the outer perimeter of that stack of hair. There's a lot of hairs in the center of that have no thread on them. They've got some pressure, thread pressure, but no thread. Well, actually, belt binding them down. If we lose 2 or 3 out of the center, you might very well lose the whole wing. So I'm going to come through here and bind down a lot more of those hairs. All right. Time for rubber legs. We all know I can cut this piece of rubber leg material I've got in half, tie one on one end and one on the side and one on the other side. I like to slide it under the thread like that. Take another turn. And at a demo I did for Project Healing Waters of Omaha, One of the gentlemen suggested that I do it like that. I usually just slide it in one, take a wrap, and then take the other end of it and slide it in. But this works well. Just doubling it and taking it on around behind around the hook. So a couple more tight turns. There's my 4 rubber legs. So I whip finish, and that's the pattern. But there's something else I'd like to add to it. This is me. I don't know about you guys, but I fish a pattern of this sort in the stream and going in and out of the various light conditions. I have a hard time keeping track of my fly sometimes. Sometimes I can't find the darn thing. So I like to put something on that's a nice bright color so I can see. I don't believe it affects the fish at all because it's all the way on top. Got to remember what the fish see while we're doing these things. I always try to remind myself. I like to take a little piece of foam, bright color, chartreuse, yellow, orange, whatever color you're going to be able to see in and out of shade and sunshine. Cut that off, cut this just a little bit as well. And there we go. Now, I call that a fly finder. A lot of people call it a sighter, or some guys refer to it as a strike indicator. But I like to refer to it as a fly finder because that's what it does. I'm going to show you an alternative to that. Back over here, I'm going to get some yellow deer here. Not very much. No need to stack it. What I did was just wrap it around the thread, and I'm holding it up. I'll pull this, put this here. I'm going to pull this down. I'm actually flaring the hair. You can't tell it because I've not let go of the butts or the tips, but you can see the hook shank coming down. I'm flaring pretty, pulling it pretty tight. I'm going to come up here, cut that off. Now I've got a fly finder out of deer hair. And that is the Skunk, the 1940s
I love
version.
that, and I've never seen a indicator on the top added that way before. Great. Rick wants to know how buoyant is the chenille?
Not very, which is why, actually, I think tied like this, the chenille is going to soak up water, and I think it's going to make it lay a little lower in the water. I think that's why when they started messing with it in more modern times, they switched to the poly yarn instead of the chenille.
Sure.
Now,
John wants to know, he finds himself periodically getting stuck by the hook point when he's tying. What do you do to avoid that? He's thinking maybe a small piece of foam over the point or something. Any ideas?
I've seen a lot of guys. I've seen some people just bury the hook point in the jaws of the vise, which I don't like. And actually, I use the hook barb and the hook point as points of reference along there. The flies that I have had problems doing that, actually sticking myself with it, I take a piece of foam and stick it on there. But for the most part, all the years I've been tying, I have learned to avoid it. If I hit it, I realize real quickly that I've messed up.
Understand. Any other questions out there? Oh, great suggestion from Kristen Macy. She says rubber earring backs are great on the hook points. Excellent.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that is an excellent suggestion. Here's the more modern version. They switched to half tail for the tail. There is some eye stub underneath for the body as opposed to the chenille. And we've got foam here going this way. And I guess they just couldn't resist putting some flash in with the wing. But that's the new modern version. And I'm going to be tying some of those up in various colors for my local smallmouth fishing.
Well, one of the things about the foam, it wouldn't make any difference if you've got chenille for the body or what you got for the body. Well, then it's on to the weekly tip. I'm going to show you how flies can see. My good friend John Kraft gave me this idea a long time ago. He has a section on his website called Throwback Thursday. Well, this is a throwback tip, is what this is going to be. And I think some of you will probably recognize this. We've seen it in the past. We've discussed it numerous times, and I probably got more emails over this particular tip than any other of all those that we've done over the last several years. This right here is a mud flap. As it were, it came from the back of a semi that was on its way out of a parking area, fell off, and anyway, I went and picked it up and kept it rather than leave it lay there along what happened to be railroad tracks, and forgot to take it out and throw it away. And when I got home, saw that I had it and discovered in playing around with the fibers on this thing after cleaning the mud out of it, by the way, uh, that it makes some of the best melted mono eyes I've ever seen. And that's what we're going to show you tonight. And a couple of experiments. I have these brainstorms on the way to work. When I say on the way to work, on the way to do the Zoom tonight. And for me, a commute to the Zoom studio is actually 21 steps from my easy chair to the Zoom studio. So during my commute, I had this brainstorm. We'll talk about it as we get into this section. But let's take a look over here at the materials area. And what I've got here is just some stuff laid out. That a cigarette lighter, I'll just throw that over at the tying area. And here in my clip, I've just got one of those strands off of that mud flap. I mean, it's I don't know how I could even show you anything better than that. One of the things that I found that works really good for cutting that stuff, because it's just tough as can be, are these little choppers that I got for doing wire. Well, they do really great on that monofilament type stuff. Set that down. And here's one that I've already done. We'll get over here to the vise. I've melted this one out of a section of that mono. And I want you to notice that I have it placed in a tweezers that remains closed until I push it to get it open. I have to push it like that to open it, and I got to hold it open, otherwise it stays shut. And I found that makes the handiest thing for melting the mono eyes. And what I do is I identify a spot on this gripper, if you will, that falls in line with about the width of the eye on the hook that I plan to have this go on. Well, earlier today, I had this wild thought that I'd put these types of eyes on a fly that I've never done it before. This fly right here, let me get my focus fly out of here and we'll put this in the vise. This is a Thunder Creek design. It was originally designed by Keith Fulcher, but it didn't have melted eyes on it or even dumbbell eyes. It had painted eyes. And I thought, well, in a brainstorm this afternoon, I'd try putting these monofilament dumbbell eyes on them. And quite frankly, it's interesting, but I'm sure not going to replace what goes on the fly, which was originally painted eyes, and it made a more slender profile to the head. This bulks the head up too much in my estimation. So I'll set that aside. But what I did want to point out before I get off of here is we're looking at the width of this hook eye right here. And I'm thinking that I need to identify a spot on my gripper, if you will, that will be about the width of the hook eye. And what that does is identifies how much space I have between one eye on the left and flip it over the other eye on the right, or back on the left as I flipped it over. Because there has to be a space between the two for you to lash it on the hook. And I just arbitrarily decided that space, at least we'd start with the width of the eye. Maybe that's too close. Maybe it's not far close enough. We'll find out as we go along. But first off, let me just take this out of the way. And I want you to see how easy this stuff melts. I just got some right here. And compared to most monofilament, and I don't know about you, but when I melt regular monofilament. What happens is you apply the flame. It looks really good for about a split second, and then it droops. Well, this stuff doesn't droop. Of course, you have to take the flame away, just like you do with any of the other stuff. But you see how that just stays so nice and symmetrical without drooping and falling and all the stuff that you have to put up with the others? And there's the melted mono eye. All we got to do now is cut this off and repeat the process on the other side. Well, this is just a weekly clip. It's not a fly tying lesson. So we're back. Any questions before we go to one of the other sections? Kristen Macy from Tacoma posted a link for the earring pads to keep from sticking your fingers with the hook. So thank you to Kristen. And if you go into the chat, you'll find that hyperlink that she put up. That will be real handy. What you do is click on that, and that'll get a web page opened up for you, so you can save it to your favorites or whatever, and go back and look at it after we get done tonight. Or you can go back. You can go look at it now. For that matter, there's not a whole lot left of tonight's presentation. But any other questions?
Yeah, Al, to keep me from going out to the nearest semi and stealing his mud flaps, you got any idea where we can get some of those?
Yes, I thank you, John. The $5 will be in the mail tomorrow. Yeah, that was a good segue, and that's exactly what I was looking for. And if you go on Amazon, get 5 or 6 of your best buddies with you. The same thing is available as mud guards for RV vehicles. And you can get a long one that goes clear across, or the shorter ones that only covers one wheel or the other. I think the people that are towing some kind of a small car behind their RVs, they want one that goes all the way across and to protect it. They run about $70, and I can tell you right now, let's see. You can see I got this about 10 years ago, and I haven't used very much off of this long old piece. So you could get a chunk like this that goes on the back of a truck and cut it up into about 5 or 6 different pieces with a hacksaw and share it with a bunch of friends and still have about 20 lifetime supplies of the stuff. You can also look, there's we've done this on another one of our tips and tricks presentations. There is a garage push broom that I have upstairs. It's that black fiber, and it seems to be the same thing, except in the push broom, the fibers are much smaller. And so it's a lot easier when you're making eyes on down into the teens, 16s and 18s and stuff like that.
Al, this is Rick.
Yeah, Rick.
Can you hear me? Yeah, the other place where I think I have the same stuff is I put it's kind of a brush that goes on the bottom of my garage door. It goes along with insulation, and I had enough of that left over, not as much as you have, but a more appropriate amount for my future age. So
Right. I think it's a good time now just to head into the next section. And now it's time where all of you get to tell all of us what's on your mind and what kind of topics you have that you want to share with us. And I usually start with Evelyn and her artwork. However, I think she's at Salbug in Arkansas right now. But Evelyn, if you're on here, would you chime in, please, real quick? Okay. I don't see her. And as I said, I assumed that she was in Salbug. Okay. Bill Klumper had contacted me and wanted to share. Okay, it's all yours, Bill. Let us know what you got going.
Okay, thank you, sir. This came about during a Project Healing Waters challenge. John Wright gave me to use that, gray foam backer rod. And what I found is if you twist it, you can make a bullet-shaped body with it. So what I did is, just to show you all what you can do with it, is there you go. You can make this neat bullet-shaped body. And since I had some other materials to play with, Al had shown this stuff called Mueller Pro Wrap. Remember he had shown that to you? So what I did is I took the same body, right? You can use all the colors, took the Pro Wrap and created this. So now I've got a way to hide the gray. And so you can really create any kind of colored popper that you want. I could put lead wire underneath it. This is just some of that crystal flash hackle kind of stuff. And this was just a pattern I put together for a few minutes. And then I found out this Mueller Pro Wrap, because of its little rubbery properties, hangs on to stuff. And that's what I found out when I was doing the fly called a Franken minnow for Project Healing Waters Omaha, that it holds on to stuff. So if you got really slick materials, you can put a very, very thin base, because you can make it thin enough you can actually see the materials through it as you do a wrap. And so that was something there that I was given a challenge, and this is where Al's wrap that he had shown had come in handy. I'm going to segue to something else. This is a little piece of red rubber. Well, this is called TheraBand. And I found out you can cut it into very, very tiny little strips with a rotary cutter. And so it comes in green, yellow, black, chartreuse. You can tie it on the end of a fly, and the fly is not going to be breaking it, because this is the same stuff you use, right, when you're doing your physical therapy and stuff. So the laugh, this is for Sherry. In one of her discussions for Oregon, I had mentioned me playing around with Mom Mink's coat, and so everybody's heard about that before. So this was just a little fly I created, and what I used is I used a little pom-pom that's attached with a 4-pound piece of nylon, your fishing line, and then I just put a little dot of UV, and so I can have a pom-pom there, or I could put it forward and go from there. So those are just a couple things that I tinkered with. But yeah, the little foam idea and twisting it was kind of an accident find, because it had been twisted in the garage. So allows you to make bullet-shaped bodies using that foam very, very easily.
Excellent. I've been using that foam for years, never had thought about that idea. And Bill, thank you for a really great piece of inspiration and something that I'm going to be adding to my bag of tricks. Well, that's it for this week, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. For now, it's a wrap. Until next time, be seeing you.